Welcome to the My Inner Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Laura Ferry. I'm so happy you're here with me today. We're talking about something very important, what we're bringing to the table in business, in relationships. Let's start leaving our bullshit at the door. Stop showing up with your own agenda. It's a topic I'm pretty passionate about, and I truly believe you have the power to get through what you've been holding on to and start showing up as your authentic self. So grab a cup of coffee and come get uncomfortable with me. So let's dig in. Leaving our bullshit at the door. It sounds kind of harsh, but in a way, and I think you'll understand this as we move forward. It's so important that we stick together. And for some reason, especially with women, there's always this unsaid necessarily, there's a competition or judgment, negativity that's associated with women, with each other. And it's prevalent in movies. I mean, we don't, it's not really a surprise. It shouldn't be a shock to you. As I'm talking about it. And like, where does this come from? And I've encountered this my whole life, just as many of us have. But as I am navigating through business, it's showing up in different areas, and it surprises me every time, in different, levels of interaction, I guess you could say. Being a business owner, you're going to encounter all sorts of people. And it just kind of goes to show like where everyone is walking around, kind of with their own bullshit and their history, the encounters that they've had, and unsupport, if you will. So I really wanted to just kind of talk about it because I've been meeting more and more people in business, and the more exposed you are, the more you are open to meeting all types of people from everywhere. And it's been kind of interesting. Not always great, sometimes awesome. But I've had people showing up to my meetup events, with their own agenda. And I guess that's to be expected, to a certain extent in business, but I just don't understand it because I've never really done that before necessarily. You definitely walk into a meeting with what you want to control the outcome to be. And truth be told, we have no control over that. But in my own business, I do these community events, say, where other people can show up. And I did this one, book swap not that long ago, and a few different coaches showed up, and you can tell who has put in the work and who hasn't. Just because you're a coach doesn't mean that you're fully healed, or healed in any aspect, or kind of know yourself that well. And I think that's why sometimes coaches get a bad rap, but it's kind of interesting because I've never been one, whether it be on social media or in person, to tear someone down for no reason. And there are definitely people out there that exist. At this one event that I had recently, it was a book swap, and this woman showed up who was a coach. And the first thing that she said to me, one of the first things that she said to me was, "Oh, this is so cool that you're doing this." Oh, and then we regrouped, and she's like, "Oh, I just followed you on Instagram. How many followers do you have? You said you had more of an audience on Facebook." And I was so taken aback because no one's ever asked me that before. And that's kind of something that I think, it kind of dug into me for some reason. And I couldn't figure out why it was affecting me like that, because it felt like she was insulting what I had built already. And I didn't, I practiced my pause. I didn't react, and I just kind of gave, the information and moved on, and it didn't really matter. But I found myself questioning, like, what did that activate within me, to make me feel that way? Who asks that? I'm not really sure. But regardless of that, whatever her motive may have been, I don't know because I'm not her, but I've never questioned someone, like that, whether it be behind the screen or in person. So I think how we show up and what we present, and it could have been absolutely an innocent ask just in support. But it wasn't really delivered in that way. So it was really interesting. And then other people have inserted their own different comments throughout again at that same event. So it's just really interesting. And it is always women. Men have their own kind of reaction to what I'm doing and what I'm sharing. But women definitely have this almost unsaid rivalry between each other. And I definitely have it in some personal relationships of mine as well, that I've been trying to navigate and figure out why, or I know where it came from or why it came from childhood and then moving forward. You can only meet somebody where they are willing to show up. So no matter what the work that you do within, it's not unwarranted. It's definitely necessary. But you can control how you show up for other people. And that's what I wanted to target today. I recently read a really good book, and I think I shared it on a previous podcast. Let Them by Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins is my idol, one of my idols. I really look up to her. I like her can-do attitude and the no bullshit response. We are very similar in that aspect. And I just like the way that she words things that make sense and connects the dots for me. So she wrote a new book, and it came out right before Christmas, I believe, called Let Them, the Let Them Theory. And you can go to myinnerstruggle.com and check that out, purchase it. I actually listened to the audiobook right after it was available. I listened to it in 3 days, then started again, then purchased a hard copy because I thought it was so insightful. It connected so many dots for me, and she covers relationships, all types of relationships, and it connected some really, really important things for me that I needed to let go. And the whole concept is just beautiful and eye-opening, and probably one of the best self-help books I've ever read in my life. And I've been recommending it to everybody that I talk to. There are instant insights on relationships with your children, to your other family, in business, romantic relationships, and all sorts of great examples that she uses in her own life. So I really, really love that. Have great respect for her and everything that she offers. And the tools that she offers have helped me tremendously, and I use them and practice them daily. And that has just been a really great resource, that book, The Let Them Theory. So I would highly, highly recommend that if you are in that mode in your journey. And even if you feel, and I want to say this because I encountered this in coaching this last week, that you're like, yeah, I've heard that before. When you're approaching something new or a new concept, or you're opening a book, let go of the shit that you already think that you've learned already and look at it with open eyes. The same way you're approaching a new diet or a new job or anything like that. Go into it with a clear lens, like you don't know anything already, so that you can absorb everything that whatever that information is there to serve you, because there's so many things, and that's why I reread the book again, because even as you go through it once, you're like, oh yes, I did hear that, but it might ring true in some other instance in your life or relate to it a different way. That's why it's kind of fun visiting old books and things like that, or old movies. And the same thing happens if you're watching a movie that you've watched 10 times before, and then all of a sudden something clicks and you're like, oh, that makes so much more sense. So let's talk about women specifically. Everyone has something to learn from everyone. I used to be really limited in that capacity. I didn't, not that I wouldn't root people on. I definitely would root people on, but I would sit there in my own anxiety, worried that they would, the collective they, whoever that was, would like them better, that I was less than, that I didn't have as much to offer. They were smarter than me. And it was probably 10 plus years ago, working for a boss, and he was like, you should never be afraid of, actually, this was really critical actually, because I was pregnant with my youngest daughter, and it was a boss that I was working really closely with, and I needed to find someone to cover my maternity leave. And so I'm interviewing people and he's interviewing people, and we're trying to decide, who would be the best fit to fill my role while I was out, having my daughter. And I said to him, I was completely honest, and I said, I'm a little nervous. Like, what if you find someone that knows more than I do? Or, what if, all of those questions, right? What if you guys work better together than we do? And he said, I'm never afraid of someone being smarter than me, because I can always learn something from them, especially if they're good people and they're willing to teach you. So whether they're working underneath you or above you or as a peer, there's things to learn from everyone that you encounter. And so that has always stuck with me, even though I still had my own insecurities going into that. And in the end, it's always a good lesson. And so I've encountered that, several times before in people that I was hiring, interviewing. Try to leave your own bullshit at the door so that you can be open to learning and growing. And that's not to say that I didn't let that hold me back. Definitely. There were situations where I let that hold me back, and thus hold the situation, the department back, because of my own insecurity and bullshit. When you try to control the situation around you, you're definitely limiting yourself. So if you can get familiar with getting uncomfortable and realizing that you have so much to learn from other people, and it's not so much about your pride or ego, and letting those things go. As a full grown adult, I can remember my mother kind of going through that and observing that, we were at an event, and she had things that she was trying to sell that she had made and things like that. And there was somebody else there that did the same thing. And automatically she was just shut off. She's like, well, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to get anything, or this isn't going to be, she's going to complain, or whatever it is. And I remember sitting there looking at her, and I was in my 30s, and I'm like, what are you talking about? There's room for everybody. So even then, saying that, I think she kind of got over herself a little bit in the situation, but again, people can only meet you where they are. And so what we have control over is ourselves. Limiting yourself to believing that there's not room for everyone is limiting our potential, your level of success. And that's not how we grow. We all have something to offer. Social media, social expectations, comparison culture can really, really deteriorate that. And we don't want that. Just believe in yourself and your ability. There is room for everyone. When we feel like there's only room for one, we start seeing each other as competition. And that's not fucking true. There are so many fucking people in this world that want what you offer. Just believe that. There's no reason that you have to copy or mimic or do whatever. Just be yourself. There is an audience for that. And that's really like coming from a negative mindset. And so once we start addressing those things like that, where does that come from? When my mother was sitting there upset about someone else kind of doing the same thing as her, like, where is that coming from? And that is that, that feeling of comparison or jealousy. Jealousy was a big thing. And insecurity, not being confident in yourself and what you have to offer. That's nobody else's problem. That's your fucking problem to address. We fear judgment of other people, or getting hurt. And sometimes, but you really have to be confident in yourself and what you have to offer. And confidence is one of those things that we work on in the self-love club. We have, when someone says some sort of like underhanded comment to you that, you don't know how to necessarily process it, or what it's, what it's actually evoking in the other person. And so we have to remember that. So that let them theory is kind of like, let them do what they're going to do, and then let yourself process and be yourself, your true authentic self. Again, read the book. It's very, very good. Um, I had a friend for years who was a coach, and that's actually how we met because I was writing my blog and she approached me and she's like, I think we should work together. I think we would complement each other really well. And so we started working together and I would help her at events and things like that for years. And as I was making the decision to leave my full-time job and really focus on my business, it wasn't a surprise that, like I really wanted to start my coaching practice. And by the time I had all of my elements together and I was going to launch, she had stopped talking to me and I didn't even know. That's how clueless I was. I thought this was going to be this beautiful relationship because all up until that point, I was still helping her and guiding her in business because maybe we had different elements to offer. And for whatever reason, I had no idea what had happened and realized eventually that she had stopped talking to me. And so I think about that often. At the time, I don't think when you're in it, sometimes like you're really like, what the fuck? Like, what happened? And now I realize like that was her dealing with her own insecurities. And rather than facing that head on and working through that or having a conversation about it, she just put up a wall. I've been guilty of that so many fucking times in my past. And that is one thing that I've been really navigating the last 2 years is not building a wall, is kind of working through that. Of course, there are times when we are taken advantage of and we really should cut off contact. And it's up to us to decipher and work through which situation deserves what response. But when we focus on how, like I went into this thinking we could have this beautiful relationship and really build off of each other and work together. And it would be this really cool thing. That wasn't her intent necessarily. I think that, and of course, I have no way of knowing exactly what was going through her head at the time, but I would say that was fueled with insecurity because you're not really confident in what you have to offer. And when we constantly compare ourselves to the person next to us, we're limiting ourselves. You are not them and they are not you. You have the ability to be your true, authentic self. And sometimes people go like, well, I don't even know what that means. And that's when you have the work to do to figure out who you are and what you have to offer. Again, other people can only meet you where they're at. It's up to them to do the work to come together. And again, that book by Mel Robbins, The Let Them Theory, helped me heal from a lot of unresolved feelings about relationships ending, friendships ending, and things that we can, or skills that we can acquire to help us move forward and find the right relationships. And the more that we grow, the higher our vibration rises, right? And then we start meeting new people, which is why I opened it and I said it's so strange because I've been a coach and I'm meeting all these incredible people, but I'm also meeting people at a new level that still have bullshit that hasn't been addressed. And so being a coach, you're trying to stay, I want to say not ahead of the game, but everything that I do is related to personal development. If I am trying to sell my clients on coaching on personal development and I'm not developing myself continuously, I'm selling something that I'm not really fully backing up or believing in. And so that's important of therapists, of coaches, of anybody in that regard. If they're not walking the walk, then they're probably not for you. You need someone that's been there. And that's why there's so many personalities too and situations. And as I published my book and people are like, I resonate with that so much. And those are my ideal clients, I guess I could say, because they resonate with my story. And someone else may resonate with the coach next to me's story because they had a similar experience. And that's why there is room for everyone. And we don't have to be in competition. We can all support each other. I want to speak for a moment about trusting your intuition and the let them theory, listening to that let them theory as I was going through another difficult situation in my life, and I'm still navigating through it, is that you know when something is off, or when you meet someone and something just doesn't feel right, even though they're saying all the right things, and just something feels a little bit off. And so that is when you can trust your intuition. Maybe not dive in all the way. Not everybody needs to know everything. We don't have to give away everything. We can not be guarded, but be ourselves, and learn to trust before jumping in with both feet. And sometimes that's hard because when you meet someone that is similar to you, you're really, really excited. And I just had this conversation with a good friend of mine. You're really, really excited and you want to just like vomit everything out and connect and really, really have this great collaboration. But it's okay to take it slow. And so, and that is in all types of relationships, right? Like if we're dating somebody, we don't have to jump in with 2 feet. I know it's super exciting, but we can just slowly walk the walk before we start running together or whatever it is. So when you meet someone and you're being triggered, or you feel kind of something's off, and you're learning how to trust that intuition, there's a lot of things. I mean, when we're talking about personal development and personal growth in a vacuum, it's this huge topic, right? And so we all have different triggers that from past experiences or what have you that guide us to where we are now. And those are the things that we have to work on or heal from. And we can keep peeling layers of the onion forever and ever and ever and learning and growing. But when you are, stepping into a meeting or meeting someone new in business or something like that, and as a woman, as a coach, I definitely have felt those things. It's how we work on it and how we address it, how we react. Those are all the things that we can control. So when I walk into a meeting and I'm like, oh, look at, there's this coach and they have all these followers or whatever. Like, what is that triggering in me? Am I going to get that like crappy, I'm not good enough feeling? Or I'm going to turn this around and be like, you know what? Maybe this could be a really good collaboration. What can I learn from this person? And why is it triggering me? What is it evoking in me that I feel this sense of lack, or that I'm being threatened or something like that? So when you can dig into those situations and those questions, when you feel those things, that's where the growth lies. And it can take years to unpack some of this stuff. It can take or you could meet somebody and everything is like, oh, those are all my triggers at once. Let me figure out what this is. And then you're working on how can you learn from that situation? How can you address that? How can you do better? And that is the whole thing. We can say sorry until tomorrow, but until we change our behaviors and the reactions that we have, nothing's going to change. Being self-aware of what triggers you is super helpful. And again, those are those angsty feelings that you get like going into a situation. Your body is telling you something. So if you feel annoyed towards something, there's something being triggered inside of you. So you can ask yourself, is this just not good for me? Is this a past situation kind of repeating itself and I need to learn this lesson? Is it, I'm jealous? Okay. So get fucking jealous. Get jealous to the point where you're like, I need to make a change, period. Like, that jealous feeling is kind of a good guide for yourself. So I meet this woman, that woman that came to my book swap, and she's asking me about my followers. Okay. Well, what does it mean in me that I don't have as many, that more people like her, or, it just makes me feel like maybe I'm not as established as she is. But it inspired me, after I dug through that, inspired me to just keep being my authentic self, because that is, um, that is who I am, and I can't really change that. This is what I have to offer. And you are no different, whether you're a coach or not. It doesn't really matter, a business owner or not, or you are someone that is an expert in marketing and you work at various firms or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. If you could be a great teacher and still be threatened by the teacher next to you. And so just have confidence in yourself. And if there's something that is triggering you, then that's telling you something, that maybe it's time for you to go back to school and get your master's degree, or it's time for you to learn a new skill or put some extra work into your lesson plan so that your class is having as much fun. You can take this and replicate it in any field, basically, that you're working in, if you are being triggered by these things. When you stop feeling like someone else's success diminishes yours, you'll see that we can all win together. Let's celebrate together. And that was one thing that I said at my book launch. Like, that wasn't just for me. This is celebrating women and all of our accomplishments, because we don't celebrate ourselves. But why can't we let our bullshit go and celebrate each other? Because this is what we're here for. There are so many things that we have to offer each other, even if we're doing the exact same fucking thing. And that's exactly where the growth is, because there are tools and ideas and all sorts of things that maybe if you didn't have that conversation with that person that you were triggered by, you wouldn't have all of these ideas that you're like, you know what, I'm going to start working harder on my marketing or my social media presence or whatever it is. Women don't have to compete. We can work together. We can celebrate each other, and we can accomplish so much more together as a team. So really work on your bullshit. Look at it. Pay attention to your triggers. When we acknowledge the pressures that we have, and understanding how competition has been built into the practice, we can create a better environment. We can consciously choose to support each other, to collaborate, and cultivate an environment where we can celebrate each other's successes and not be in competition with each other. We can empower each other to take breaks, to be creative together, and break free from those limiting beliefs that there's only room for one, because there's room for everyone. When you catch yourself comparing, stop, feel whatever trigger is happening, and get jealous. Come up with a plan, pause, and reframe yourself. Reframe the thought. Figure out what it is that's triggering you and turn it around into something productive. I want you to really think about this episode. I really want you to read the book, Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, because it really was life altering. And I'm pretty sure Oprah actually said it was one of the best self-help books that she's read as well. I want you to think about what you can do today to support other women in your community, whether it's in business, in friendships, giving them a compliment, shouting out another business. Share the love. There is always room for more love. There's actually another great book that I read a few years ago, is Love as a Business Strategy. And it's basically how we need to support each other, essentially. And so when you can let go of your bullshit, leave it at the door, stop showing up with your own agenda. That's not what this is about. Yes, we want to make business and sales and make connections and all of that and grow. But when you leave your agenda at the door, people can see that. Don't show up with just your own agenda. Don't show up and do all the talking. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you found value in this message. Please give me your feedback. I love to hear from you, and anything that you might be struggling with or want to hear about. I love getting your messages. Please do me a favor, wherever you're listening or watching, hit like and subscribe and share it with a friend if you think that they would find value in this as all. Please be sure to check out the blog at myinnerstruggle.com and check out the Self Love Club while you're there. I'd love to have you join us and find some confidence and community through connection. And we're just having a really great time working on ourselves and creating goals and building this awesome community. I am thinking of you and sending you love, and I will see you soon.